Thank you for joining our second CPD Tea Time chat with our lead schools. So it's practice on the ground happening, so you can kind of hopefully take back, kind of provoke some thoughts, questions for your schools and the way your schools work, promote thinking, and share ideas really, and share practical ideas. This is one of a series of 8, I think we've got running over the half term, with our lead schools sharing good practice with everyone. The lead schools is a directive by the Arts Council, and they are supporting the hub in shaping the future of music across the county. And yeah, we are welcoming Jules Evans from a school in Dorset, the Prince of Wales, and Sarah Hall from Kingsmead. I do apologise. Sarah Hall from Kingsmead, primary and secondary settings, to give you an outlook on their work in curriculum ethos and curriculum design. So we're going to kickstart with Jules, and I'm going to hand over to you.
Hi. So I've got some slides for you to look at. So Prince of Wales, just to explain, we're a first school, so we work from preschool all the way to year 4, and then children go off to middle school. We have a higher than average national average for SEND. We have a very significant number of pupils with SEND, and we have a physical disability resource base. So obviously we're trying to make sure that our music curriculum is really accessible. Nicola, did you want to put the slides up for me? And then we can, I'm a really visual person, so had to have slides, but I'll talk you through it. So I focused today on our cultural capital curriculum, as this is something that we've been working on for about 4 years, and embedding 4 years. So this is just some tips and advice about embedding cultural capital curriculum, which is a real central pin of our English curriculum, goodness me, it's been a Monday. Our music curriculum, obviously. So, all right, Nicola, could you whiz us on? Okay, so I've just looked at like what it is we actually need, what is the intent, what is it we have to put into our music curriculums, what should we be teaching, what does the national curriculum say to us, and what our, here at POW, what our cultural capital curriculum looks like, what we did, how we do it now, and the impact that it's had on our learners. Thank you. So this is just advice. This is just a reminder of what the cultural capital curriculums are. Obviously, it depends which key stages you're looking at. At POW, we focus on key stage 1 and key stage 2. There we go. Thank you, Nicola. So what we did, so about 4 years ago, we did a massive curriculum review of everything that we teach. We took every subject apart and we put it back together, and we decided to teach what the curriculum says. I think sometimes we get a bit bogged down in all the other stuff that we put into place. So we really stripped it back, looked at the curriculum and decided what is it we actually have to do. I then spent a lot of time thinking, and it was a lot of time thinking about how we were going to embed this kind of cultural capital. It was an area that we didn't feel the scheme we were using at the time covered particularly well. We were aware that there were massive gaps in student knowledge around composers and different genres of music, and we're thinking, right, okay, how can we how can we improve this across the board for everyone? So once we'd identified those areas of development, obviously we went and spoke to our stakeholders and pupil voice, and pupils were really, really keen to know more. And they were a little bit frustrated that they didn't know. When you began to ask them questions, they were like, oh, I don't know anything about that. And that kind of, it really kind of saddened them that there was lots of things about music they didn't know. And we started building slowly. So this is what I'm going to show you for the next chunk of slides is a 4-year development. It isn't something that came in overnight. And all the way through it, there was lots of reflecting with staff. We don't have any music specialist staff at the school. I'm kind of the only one, and I would use that term very loosely when it comes to my kind of musical background. And then we've embedded it and improved it. Thank you, Nicola. Oh, look, there's Beethoven. Isn't he a happy chap? Might be quite slow with some of the pictures, unfortunately. Are we okay to move on, if possible? If not, I'll start waffling. So this was a really key message. Oh, sorry. I think I've got a slight delay on the
So it's
on
taking a
stream.
little while to. So
Sorry.
we've got Beethoven.
So
Who should be next?
right, we'll stick with Beethoven for a second.
Okay.
A really key thing for us, and I would really advise this: expect that they don't know it. Expect that they don't know about orchestras. Expect that they don't know about who's the person in the front with the stick. Expect they don't know that's a conductor. Expect that they don't know about different genres of music or the history of music. Don't think they know. I think we know nationally that music knowledge is decreasing and music experience is decreasing because it's much harder for children to access. So if you do have musical children from musical families, they probably do have an awareness, but certainly some of your disadvantaged learners won't. They won't have that awareness of the music kind of cultural historical capital surrounding it. What is your culture? We knew what our culture was. We knew that we were inclusive. We knew that we wanted to explore different musical genres. We wanted to have really strong representation of different cultures. So what does yours look like? What is it that you need to teach your pupils? It'll be different from what ours was. Reflect on your logistics and strategies. How can you implement this? When can you implement this? Who's going to implement this? So that you've got a safety net. And then obviously the usual kind of steps: plan for it, embed it, reflect and improve. And the reflecting was a real crucial part for us, for staff who were resistant to make changes. We really had like a supportive structure through that. All right, thank you, Nicola. The next one's quite a good one, I think. So this is our cultural capital curriculum. This is what people study between year 1 and year 4. It works slightly differently in early years, as it should. So each year children learn about 2 classical composers, a film composer, a contemporary classical composer or performer, or both, depending on who it is. I decided that we'd look at musical theatre as one of our big focuses, and then the final one is a musical genre, which you can see we've got things like choirs, marimba, opera and folk music, just because they were very interesting kind of subjects for our pupils. That could change completely depending on what yours are. So they change every half term. These run for about 5 or 6 weeks depending on the length of the half terms, but this is what our pupils learn. Thank you, Nicola. The cultural capital element, this is not all of our lesson. This is a 10-minute section of our music lessons, specifically looking at cultural capital. So it takes about 10 minutes. It's meant to be really short and snappy. What's happened over time is children have learned how to access this part of the curriculum. Teachers have learned how to deliver it. So we then do that as a small section and then move on to the main section of the lesson. It works really well if you're using a scheme. If you have a music scheme that you're following, just adding in this little bit can work really well. It's a high oracy discussion part of your learning with children. Children are expected to discuss, they are expected to think, they are expected to share. And then there are guided questions. That's how we did it. That's how we taught, was through the guided questions that the adults then ask. Thank you. Just the next few slides are just examples of what we do. So for example, this is year 3's, some of year 3's cultural capital curriculum. It always starts with a repetitive introduction. So children then begin to learn facts about, for example, Debussy. So they begin to learn crucial information that just repeats for the 5 or 6 weeks that they're looking at him. And then we've got an example there of Howard Shore and Enya. So that's looking at soundtracks. Children tend to know soundtracks to films, so it's a really easy link for children to make. Obviously, depending on the composer, you need to think really carefully about what content you're sharing. So although we're looking at Howard Shore, the children don't see any footage from Lord of the Rings, just to clarify. So you do need to be quite careful with your content, particularly if you're looking at film composers. Thank you. Year 1, for example, look at John Williams. So it's all lovely Home Alone and Star Wars and those kind of things. So it does differ.
I have pressed down. It just might be taking a little bit of thinking time.
Right. It's okay. We can all have some thinking time. The next slide, because where are we? We're on about slide 5. Is looking at, when it does come up, it's looking at the discussion questions that we ask children every week. So the repetitive nature of it is that children know what they're going to be asked. There's a reduction in their cognitive working load because they know the teachers are going to say, what did you like? What didn't you like? That stays the same every time. So that means those nervous learners, those learners who don't find it easy to share, can enjoy the music because they know what's coming. They know the questions that are coming. There are tidbits and facts running throughout all of the slides we use because it was important that children know what an orchestra is. They know the differences between an orchestra. They know what an orchestra looks like. When we were designing this, we'd gone and done some visits with other schools, and we'd gone to a year 9 cohort, and nobody in that cohort knew what an orchestra was. None of them knew the different sections of an orchestra. And I just thought, gosh, that's such a shame that children have hit year 9 and they're not aware of it. So it's something that children at PAL start learning about in year 1. And then we just kind of build on it. So it becomes much more complex as time goes on. I'm going to ask you to move on, Nicola, because it might take a minute. Oh, no, it's fine. These are examples of slides from year 2. So this is where we just begin to talk about the fact that the orchestra sits in certain places. They've probably already noticed that from the videos that they've seen. And this information is not, this is for them to have an awareness of. It's a cultural capital curriculum. This isn't an academic, we expect children to name all the different parts of the orchestra. We don't. We just want them to be aware of it. And it's a really small section, but it's just about building their awareness of the culture that they live in, and the culture that music sits in. So again, there's just a link back here between. So in year 1, the children look at Vivaldi and the Four Seasons, which they love. And then in year 2, they look at Beethoven. And they're just reminded that Vivaldi sometimes wrote concertos and Beethoven wrote symphonies. And there's a difference between them. Thank you, Nicola. I'm whizzing because I'm aware I've only got 10 minutes and I'm a talker. These are some of the classroom resources. So this came in probably in the 2nd year that we'd done it. These go up in classrooms. So every half term, there's a music terminology update, and then there's pictures of their composer or their musician or whatever their focus is. These are also then displayed on our music displays. Sometimes they might be up in the hall, for example. This goes on to knowledge organisers, so this goes home. So parents are aware of what they're listening to as well. And it was just a way of just trying to bring music to the forefront, even if you're not in a music lesson, trying to bring music to the forefront. Thank you, Nicola. And then just some top tips around videos, because it is a video curriculum. So they listen to the music, but I wanted them to see it. I wanted them to see the performances. Make sure whatever your themes are that you have enough videos. Don't go too obscure if you then can't find the videos. Like, you need 6 of them as a minimum. And you can clip them. So that's what we've done with symphonies, for example. They can be 15, 20 minutes long, but I just picked 3 or 4 minutes for the children to listen to. So you can clip those videos as you're adding them into your slides. We have toyed with written evidence of this, which is a bit of an example there. Of what the children said when they were looking at Hans Zimmer's in year 2. Although now this is very much formed part of our oracy curriculum, so we don't do a lot of paper evidencing for this anymore. These were old. Those comments were about 3 years old. So we have just moved to it being a moment in the lesson of something you discuss. So instead of it being something that we evidence, but that's up to you guys and how you do it. It's just there as an example for you. Thank you, Nicola. This is a depending on. So, like I said, we don't have a lot of music specialists within our teaching staff. We're very, very small. There's only 5 teachers across the school. We've got 160 pupils. And I was the only one really with a performing background, with a music background. And it became really important that we upskilled our staff's knowledge of, for example, classical composers. So we have this kind of adult guidance for each focus. So adults can just look at it and go, oh yeah, okay, I remember Beethoven, he did blah blah and blah, or oh, I know who is, so it just, because obviously we're not working as specialists, we're working across the whole curriculum. This didn't take very long to put in place, to be honest, because I'd kind of done the background work via the slides and via the planning, but it was something that really supported those more resistant adopters to working in a new way. So again, like, depending on your teacher knowledge, if you want this to be successful, it might be that initially you have to front load and you have to provide lots of information. That was something we did. I don't feel that these are probably used very much anymore, but that's because we're 4 years in. But if you're having to move around classes, this is quite helpful. Thanks, Nicola. My tips, because this is a big endeavour. Cultural capital it's a big thing. Curriculum is a big thing anyway, but cultural capital is quite a big thing to embed as part of your music curriculum, as part of your ethos. This was really important to us. We wanted children to know and understand where music sits in a wider picture and the history of music. Give yourself loads of time. So you could stagger your rollout, for example, just go, I'm just going to do year 4s and I'm just going to do year 3s. I actually did ours over summer holidays, but I'm not recommending you do that. But that was when I did ours. I just did 6 lessons a day for so many weeks. We've got about 160 lessons. So depending on how your school works will depend on how you roll this out. Teachers might do it themselves. You might coordinate it. Teachers might do it. Obviously, being a very small school, it was me who had to do it. Add a bit on every year. Don't expect to have it completely designed, completely ready to go. Be curious with it, be exploratory with it, see how it impacts your learners, and choose your focuses with longevity in mind. I haven't changed our cultural capital curriculum in 4 years. That doesn't mean I haven't updated it, but it just means I haven't changed it. I haven't gone, oh, goodbye, marimba, now we're going to do this. We looked at things that we could use again and again, and it has relatively kept up to date with national guidance around music, which has been really helpful. Again, where is your, check your progression. Where does it go through the curriculum? Are there links between the composers in year 4 and the composers in reception, or sorry, in year 1? Like, where are your links? And it's really hard to represent women, for example, when you're looking at classical composers, because they were all white men. So think really carefully about where your cultural representations are. So, for example, in year 4, we have a film composer a woman, Rachel Porter. Unsuk Chi is our contemporary classical performer. We also look at people like Alexi French. And because their music and choirs, there's a big section within choirs around African choirs, for example, because it's really important that music continues to be represented in an inclusive manner, because it's such an inclusive part of our shared culture. So just think really carefully about who your children are learning about to make sure that it's broad and balanced. But that was one of the things I'd say. It's actually really hard historically to find women composers who would be classed as a great composer, because they probably were composing, but they weren't composing publicly in Beethoven's day, for example. Thanks, Nicola. We're almost there. Just things about helping to embed it. Encourage staff to play their cultural capital focus throughout the week. So are the children coming in the morning and Beethoven's playing? Are the children coming in the morning and Ludovico Einaudi's playing? Like, where are those little snippets that you can build it into your daily life? In singing assemblies, I just do a shout out. I'm like, oh, year 3, what are you, who's your artist, or who's your musician, who's your composer? And they'll just tell me, and I'll be like, oh, what can you tell me about them? So it's just about building up that awareness, trying to embed it into your daily culture. If you have a singing assembly, you can use them in your singing assemblies. It gives you more structure instead of being like, oh God, what are we going to play in assembly this term? Like, it gives you something like a foundation base. And we spent a long time talking about, as a staff, what our favourite music was, what we liked listening to, what was appealing, not because that was then embedded into the curriculum, but because it was important for staff to have that time to build that culture within our staffing body as well. Thank you, Nicola. One more to go.
Da, 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 da.
Oh, it's trying. It's
Because
thinking about
my arrow is hidden under your pictures and I can't quite work out how to.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's fine.
The last one is just thinking about what else we do musically. So we had a song of the week, which is usually what children learn. Obviously, we're primary. We do have singing assemblies still. We're part of the primary banger crew. We had a singer of the week. That was an entirely different planned progression. So, for example, historically, we've looked at girl bands, we've looked at boy bands, we've looked at influential black women, we've looked at influential black men, we've looked at opera, we've done all sorts of things. That was we did that for about 5 or 6 weeks of a half term, just in our assemblies. It was updated on social media. We'd encourage parents to play it at home with children. And again, it's about, for us, it was inviting musicians in as regularly as possible. And I've just tried to pay them. It's really hard to expect musicians who do that as a profession to then come in for free. We had a whole area of parents who were musicians who would come in and play for us. They were really happy to. But when we've had musicians in for an assembly, for example, we've always tried to negotiate with them or put them up on our social media. We've tried to do something there for them. Again, a big part of our ethos is student performances, organising concerts, choir performances. Recently, I had a boy in a year 4 came through my classroom with his cello, and my class get really confused between a cello and a double bass. They're year 1. We'll allow them to be confused about the difference between a cello and a double bass. But it seems to be a misconception I can't let go. And he walked through with his cello, and I was like, "Oh, Arthur, could you just get your instrument out and show it to them?" And my class went, "No way, it's a double bass." I was like, "No, it's a cello." But then Arthur played for us. He played what he knew. He spoke about what he, scales and arpeggios, and he was amazing. So if you've got musical students, can you tap into them? Your peripatetic music children who are having lessons, can you tap into those children and give them the opportunity to talk about what they're doing, what they're learning? We always celebrate children who are learning to read music. That's a really big skill. It's normally something only our year 3s and 4s do, because of their ages. And a lot of the time we play music at the beginning and the end of the day. For us, we have a cultural capital for art. I'm in the process of writing one for dance. It's about to launch in summer in the summer term, and then we're going to have one for drama as well. So this cultural capital has started in music and has permeated throughout our creative arts curriculum. And it's been a really worthwhile, for us as a school, it's been a really worthwhile endeavour, because we're aware children now know what a composer is and what a conductor is, what an orchestra does, and those kind of things. And it gives our children really good standing for when they go on to middle school and then, on to further ed as well. So it has been a worthwhile thing for us to do. So there we go. There's a whistle-stop tour of our cultural capital and ethos.
Thank you very much, Jules. Really informative, and great to see a real example as well happening and embedded into school life as well. Does anyone have any question for Jules before we hand over and we go up to secondary world?
It's not so much a question, but possibly, and I don't know which schools you've got around you, but we have obviously musicians up to GCSE level, and it could be a really nice collaboration. For example, at the moment, one of our students came in going, "I've learnt a piece by the Badinnery by J.S. Bach, and I've learnt it on electric guitar, and we're putting together this heavy rock version." So it could be a really lovely thing to have maybe some of our older students come into primary school, and vice versa as well, actually, which could be a really lovely way of doing it. And we tend to all be free, which could be really helpful as well.
Exactly. Yeah, we had some one year, and it was a girl who needed to do so many, she was learning to be an opera singer, and she had to do so many public performances as part of one of her grades. And so she came in and sang to us, and it was just brilliant. The children were just completely blown away. She walked in t-shirt and jeans, and then this huge Leslie Garrett style voice came out of her, and they were like, "Oh, no way." It was really useful. Definitely, I think that's a really lovely way of increasing your music performances. Yeah.
Thank you. Right, Sarah, over to you.
Okay, hello everybody. I don't have any slides, but I have actually written everything out because I'm terrible and I talk so much and I get totally carried away. So I've been very good. It's been very cathartic, actually. I think it's really nice to do something like this because you really reflect on what you do and why you do it. So yeah, I'm going to talk about the curriculum design we have at Kingsmead. Our kind of ethos around it. I've been at Kingsmead for 3 years, so it's been something we've been working on, both myself and the other teacher, Frank, together. But yeah, I've kind of like come up with some things that we do and the reason why we love the way we write our curriculum. So I'm going to be very good and keep to my thing that I've written. So we're going to talk about, I think as music practitioners, curriculum is so personal depending on who we are, what we do, what our musical background is. It is personal, despite the fact that we're incredibly lucky to have things like the power of music, which does kind of keep us grounded and give us structure. It's lovely that each of our departments will have curriculum design that's unique, despite the fact that those plans are countrywide. I've kind of gone away and thought about how I built the music curriculum here at Kingsmead. And one of the things that is really important to us is that students don't just simply participate in the music lessons, that they have the opportunity to lead it and they have an opportunity to guide it. The thriving music department cannot just be built on the curriculum alone, and we've got loads of talks coming up. I've seen all the themes, which are amazing, which goes through every aspect of what makes a music department and within a school amazing. But an engaging curriculum, to me, just can't rely solely on pedagogy, the model music curriculum, the National Plan for Music. And I was thinking about what my curriculum is kind of based on, and I've come up with 3 things. So I've gone relationships, relevance, and responsibility. So I'm going to talk about those 3 things and how we kind of use that here at Kingsmead. So when it comes to relationships, music's inherently relational. So ensemble work requires listening, trust, vulnerability from our students, and then this shared intention that they are producing something all together. We feel that if students aren't connected or don't feel connected either to each other or to us, they won't take those creative risks. So within our curriculum, we've tried to look at ways that we can build it so that the students feel connected, that they start to care, and so they feel really comfortable to contribute, whether it's performance, composition, which is really tricky for some of our students, or within like listening starters, a bit linking to your cultural capital, which we do at the beginning of all of our lessons. We're also thinking about relationships within our context of our kind of demographic. We've got a huge area. We span all the way across to the middle of nowhere in Devon, into Taunton town centre, and for everyone, our demographics are going to be incredibly different. But with ours being so broad and with some of our students being quite isolated out in rural communities, designing our curriculum, we wanted our students to feel heard, valued, empowered, that they bring the music that they listen to at home as part of their communities into school, partly so that they can start to understand each other and they talk to each other and they like to talk about the things that they love, but also to kind of better understand themselves. So then we were looking at relevance. So one of the key questions that Frank and I always ask ourselves is, does this music project matter to our students? And if it does matter to our students, why does it matter? There's a bit of a misconception, I think, when we're kind of talking about relevance to the students and kind of thinking that actually we're abandoning standards or traditions and that we are simply playing what students want to hear. But that isn't true. We can choose classical repertoire with a contemporary feel to it. If I just take today, for example, Pachelbel's Canon, how many of us have Pachelbel's Canon or a toccata or something like that within our curriculum, and then have played like Memories by Maroon 5 or Coolio and tried to show how these incredible composers from 300 plus years ago are still entirely relevant now to what our students listen to or what's going on around them. So exploring both that and music from their own homes and communities can be really equally powerful when we're in a classroom. I know that I've been in some lessons, I've been talking about something, and it could be anything, and then someone's turned up and sort of put their hand up and like, Miss, have you heard this song? And I'm like, no. And then it kind of ends up part of my Spotify playlist, which is really lovely. And that comes from this kind of really inclusive, really lovely kind of curriculum that's designed around our students and relevant to them. I think as well, like whenever I'm writing curriculum, I'm always thinking the students should be asking why. What's the point? Why am I learning this? And there is all of those wonderful things around you know, kind of our soft skills, and we're building resilience, we're doing all the things. But actually that question, why does this matter to me, is really important. And if we can respond to that question authentically, it will therefore invest students within the curriculum. Looking at responsibility, so building strong relationships, and when students are have like this kind of purposeful and relevant classroom experience, they begin to take real responsibility for learning. So when I first started at Kingsmead, we had students who would come into a classroom and they just love it, but we had some who felt really reserved, quite scared of a music environment in a way, because actually you've got to be quite vulnerable, and you put yourself in a vulnerable position where you are performing and you are sharing things that you have made yourself. And so we wanted that to kind of break down those barriers so they could take a real responsibility for their learning, wanting them to achieve and feel proud of their work so they make progress in a really meaningful way. And we have this thing where we look at quality rather than quantity, because I do think sometimes students feel that the more they do, the better they are. Whereas actually, if we strip that back to show me what you can do in 20 to 30 seconds, that covers all of these things, that's and really thinking about the intricacies of what you're doing, rather than worrying about having a huge quantity of work, you can get a real genuine eagerness to achieve in that way. So that's kind of like my kind of thought around the curriculum, but how do we do that here at Kingsmead? So I started here about 3 years ago. The school had just completed a major build, and music had moved from what was a hut, and I'm sure lots of us have taught in huts before, into we now have a music centre. So we've got like a whole ground floor of one of the buildings. There were a lot of students that absolutely loved music. But this new environment gave us a really perfect opportunity to kind of rethink the curriculum, and for Frank and I to actually have the opportunity to build it together, which is really lovely. And this togetherness around curriculum and curriculum design with your team is really powerful, because it means you're all coming from the same perspective. It was from very much the beginning, it was very clear that students who already felt they were confident as musicians, they had lots of ambition within the classroom. So our challenge at that point was reaching those where music was not a hugely important part of their lives, maybe had like a disconnect to music within education. The question was like, what's the point? So at that stage, thinking around what our curriculum was going to provide for all our students was really important. So we spent probably the best part of a year trialing loads of different things. Obviously, I'd bought stuff from my previous school. Frank had things that were already embedded here. We were refining, but then what we really found that was probably the most important was seeking student voice. And I don't mean this in a way where we go, right, here's a Microsoft form, guys, fill it out for us. It was these really lovely conversations that we had with the class in the moment. Things like at the beginning of the year saying, but what do you want to learn? Like, what do you want by the time you get to the end of year 9? And what would you like to be able to learn about within the classroom? And some of the responses we had were so lovely, even just things like, I want to learn about music from around the world, or I want to be able to know about this, or can I just play a drum kit once, you know, those kind of things. And it was just really lovely. So we asked them what they were missing. The response was huge. And then from that, we've kind of continued to build our curriculum, looked at things like podcasting to go alongside music, kind of songwriting topics where they get to kind of write their songs and then talk about it and do that, which has been really lovely. And we've had a lot of parents who've been so excited about what the students have gone home and told them, that they've kind of offered their own things like DJing workshops and mixing to folk music and all sorts, which is really lovely. And one of our governors is actually a radio presenter, so it was amazing having conversations with her and how we can embed that into our curriculum as well. The other thing that we did when we were starting thinking about curriculum is our own personal experiences, because curriculum is very much built around who you are as practitioners. So why not include sound baths? Why not have influence it and like the influence emotions and talk about those things? I mean, there's nothing quite as wonderful as going into a year 9 class with a load of gongs and going, right, we're going to lie on the floor and we're going to do a sound bath, and talking about mental health, which also gives another strand, because mental health shouldn't just be part of PSHE. It's a huge part of music, and we contribute to that as well. So that can also be part of our curriculum. We are very aware that the curriculum never stands still. We are tweaking things all the time. We develop, we adjust it, but never in huge dramatic ways. It's not like we pull something, but we really think, is this working right now? And quite often things will change in the moment. I've just doing a topic where we're looking at songwriting, but prior to that we were looking at music for film. And some of my students said, Miss, can we take some of the compositional devices that we learned in the film project and can we use it in this topic? And I could have gone, no, we are songwriting, so we're going to do this. And I was like, no, that's a great idea. So having this kind of idea that our curriculum sequence in a way where it can ebb and flow, and we've got those transferable skills that go throughout the 3 years before they get to GCSE. Obviously, when it comes to curriculum, you look at all the main ways that, you know, your sequencing and your big ideas and your purpose and your intent and all those things. But actually, I think you helping like with our students together, building it as a unit, as a whole thing, has meant that we have 2 slightly crazy teachers here who have bonkers ideas, but our students have also given us equally crazy ideas, and we've now got this really lovely curriculum. And we have an environment here where our students are bouncing outside the door going, let us in, and they come in and they are loving music, which is really lovely. And we still have a long way to go and lots of other things that we can do. But my real take from curriculum design is get the students, the people that we are delivering it to, have them part of it, let them help build the curriculum with you, because it is empowering, not just for them, but also for us as teachers. That is it.
Yeah, so I was taking the mute off. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Sarah. And I think one thing I take from what you've talked about is that being brave to have a go at trying things as well, and when they don't work, then relook at it again. And actually, we've talked a lot at Somerset Music about youth voice, and actually it's really important to talk to young people. And I've suddenly thought it's what I need to do when I'm teaching more as well. Like, just, you know, is what I'm teaching relevant to them, and you know, where do they want to take what they've learned? What would they like to do as their next step? So I think that's really important, and important that you can have a go and not worry if it doesn't go quite right. It's that curve, isn't it, to get to the place where you want to be. Does anyone have any questions for either Sarah or Jules at this point? If not, just thank you so much to you both for your input tonight. It's been really, really useful, and another great second session in our CPD. Really, really brilliant. And I guess if anyone has any questions out there that's on the call, and I'll obviously share this with the people that signed up but haven't been able to make it, I'll just say now, I can direct these questions through to me, and then I can let Sarah or Jules know. But it's been brilliant. So thank you very, very much. And thank you to everyone for joining us tonight.